I've restored the original version of GhostRobotOutlines.ai, found inside the 11 printing folder. And in this exercise, we're going to visit what are potentially the most important topics where commercially reproducing your artwork is concerned, and that is trim size and bleed size. So here's the idea. You can see that black outline right there that represents the limitations of the artboard. The image actually extends beyond the edges of the artboard into the bleed zone, and I'll explain what that means in just a moment. But for now, just visualize this. When you turn this job into a commercial printer, they're going to take this document and they're going to output it on these enormous pieces of paper. So they'll reproduce many versions of these artboards on these big sheets of paper. And then they'll go ahead and cut your actual pages, your artboards here, out of those big pieces of paper. And that's called trimming the page because they're trimming away the edges, and then they either recycle the waste or they throw it away or they do whatever they want with it, but all you get back is the artwork inside the artboards. So the size of that artboard is very important. I'm going to go ahead and press Shift-O in order to switch to the artboard tool, and that allows us to modify our artboards if we so desire. What we're going to do is just check out how big they are. So I can see that the first artboard is active, fine, and its width is 400 points and its height is 600 points. Well, what in the world does that mean in inches? I'll go ahead and press Control-R or Command-R on the Mac to bring up the rulers, and then I'll right-click on one of these rulers and choose inches like so. And now I can see that the artboard measures a little more than 5.5 inches wide and 8 1/3 inches tall. Well, that's not a standard trim size, so my commercial printer might charge me a little extra for it. You never know. However, they'll be able to accommodate this, no problem. They can go ahead and trim the page to whatever the heck you want. Also notice that my artwork is going all the way to the edge of that artboard, and that's called a full bleed. So I have no margins, no white space, no paper exposed at the edges. And again, that's something you might have to pay a little extra for, but any commercial printer can accommodate that. All right, so the first three artboards subscribe to those same measurements. The other artboard's a little wider. If I click on the fourth artboard, for example, I can see that its width value is 6 2/3 inches. Now, I'm not really all that concerned about commercially reproducing these final two artboards because, again, they're just mock-ups. But were I to do it, this would be my trim size. All right, I'm going to go ahead and press the Escape key to get out of the artboard mode. And another thing that I want you to notice about these final two artboards is they don't have any bleeds going. So the artwork falls well within the confines of the artboard. The t-shirt's a little tight, so if the printer's a little off with the trim, they might come closer to one sleeve than the other sleeve, but still we do have a margin of exposed paper around the edge. Compare that to the other three artboards, which have no exposed edges at all. They have full bleeds all the way around. So what we should do is we should establish what those bleed boundaries are. And I'm going to do that by either clicking on the Document Setup button up here in the control panel, or if you don't see it, you can go up to the File menu and choose the Document Setup command, or press Control-Alt-P, Command-Option-P on the Mac. And that's a good keyboard shortcut, by the way, because Control-P or Command-P is print, so just add Alt or Option for Document Setup, which is frequently a dialog box that you visit before printing. Anyway, I'll go ahead and bring up that dialog box. Notice the bleed options right there. I want to make sure that the chain is turned on so that all of the bleed values are linked in tandem with each other, and changing any one of them will change all of them. And then I'm going to change the top bleed value. It doesn't matter actually which one, any of the bleed values to 0.25 since I'm working in inches. And that will switch everybody to 0.25 inches. That is the same, by the way, as 18 PT. Let's go ahead and make sure. Yes, it is. So we have a 1/4 inch bleed all the way around the page. And that's a lot of bleed. What you're doing essentially is preparing for your commercial printer to be off of the actual trim. So you'll give them some crop marks to work from, and they missed the crop marks by a full 1/4 inch. That's what you're preparing for. So that would be some very sloppy trimming indeed. However, better to be safe than sorry. So go ahead and click OK in order to accept those bleed values. Now, that by itself doesn't do really anything for you. It goes ahead and throws up these bleed boundaries right here in red. So the red rectangles represent the bleed. However, it does show you the area that you need to fill with imagery just to be safe. All right, I'm going to go ahead and right-click in the rulers and choose points in order to reset that unit of measurement. And then I'll press Control-R. Command-R in the Mac, just a little housekeeping, in this case, to get rid of the rulers. Now, this image right here, the third artboard, is all ready to go. I've already got some extra imagery. And these little zaps from the robot's fingertips are extending all the way out. Actually, they go a fair distance outward, as you can see, if I go ahead and click on the artwork in order to select it. And by the way, you may have to press Control-H or Command-H in order to see those selection edges. I might have them hidden inside of this document. Anyway, you can see how far they extend. So we've got plenty of room in this bleed. So the printer, once again, can totally miss the mark, and we're going to be set. However, take a look at the first two artboards. They're a little more problematic because even though the image extends out to the bleed, the rest of the artwork does not. The other artwork, I went ahead and ended right at the artboard. Well, that was sloppy on my part. I should have gone ahead and extended that artwork farther out when I was drawing it in the first place. What do we do now, though? We're faced with the proposition of having to go in there and modify a bunch of different paths, by the way. This is pretty complicated stuff that I've set up in here. The frame is actually a compound shape with a bunch of different ingredients in it, and then we have a bunch of different framing elements layered on top of each other, and we would have to extend each one of those framing elements in different directions in order to fill this bleed space, or we could cheat and we could add a translucent stroke around our image. And it's that very cheat that I'm going to show you in the next exercise.